Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 2 of the Admit Quick Rages show. Episode 1 was Tom Nash, and episode 2 is a good friend of Tom Nash, which is Dominic, host of the Dominating Your Investments YouTube channel. Came across him randomly on YouTube, saw him talking about Palantir, really liked his analysis, really liked his thoughts. And also, he's in cybersecurity sales for his day job. So he has some unique insights in the industry of cybersecurity that I think will be interesting to talk about for when it comes to Palantir. So, hey, Dom, thank you for hopping on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And as everyone knows, if they've seen me on YouTube or Twitter, I love talking about Palantir. So it's an easy discussion.
So let's start from there. Let's start a little bit before that, and then we'll get more into Palantir. Cybersecurity sales. Can you define what that is as a full-time job, and also answer why you got into that industry?
Yeah, so with working at Carbon Black, VMware, so I work in our cybersecurity division at VMware, a company that was acquired, Carbon Black. Previously, I'd worked at Dell Technologies, selling Cylance for 3 years, and then a little bit of CrowdStrike when that partnership arose, and then VMware purchased Carbon Black. So that became the new staple within the Dell Technologies umbrella. And for cybersecurity, it really all starts at the endpoint. We have laptops, we have desktops, we have mobile phones. 75% of breaches still happen today at the endpoint. But attacks are happening so much. These are not attacks that are happening now from some kid in a basement, right? These are nationwide attacks, nation state attacks. And these are very orchestrated cyber criminals that think of old day mafia, but now digital.
Right.
That's what we're trying to prevent. And there's a lot of different things that go into cybersecurity. There's not one silver bullet by any means. Anyone with a security background understands that it's defense in depth and in layers. So you really have to make sure that you have an environment that is fully connected to where you have visibility to everything that's going on, from your internal network to the cloud, to your endpoints, your users. So there's a vast amount of different types of security needs that an organization needs to fulfill. That's why a lot of customers have a lot of different vendors. So what you're seeing in the marketplace today is companies like VMware and others trying to have a platform approach where we really can offer every bit of the environment being visible and being able to respond very quickly.
Right.
So I've been doing cybersecurity sales for now about 7+ years. Recently just took a promotion onto our marketing team to work with product development. So that's kind of my background on cybersecurity.
And when it comes to the sales portion, I'm assuming you kind of naturally have to learn how to pick up the phone and get the numbers in and actually get those sales done. Or is it a little bit different in cybersecurity sales?
Yeah. So, there's different levels of business sales. You have your SMBs, you have your mid-market, then you have your enterprise, your global. Right. I've covered the gamut over my 20 years of sales history. And then you also have state and local government and healthcare. And so security means something different to all of those different industries.
Right.
What we're seeing now in the media and seeing more visible is that anybody's susceptible, whether it's mom and pop's grocery store down the road, or if it's Target. So it's important for everybody because it impacts us all, right?
Right.
Consumer to business. And once again, this is nation state attacks, right? These are people are on the dark web getting hired, getting paid to basically be, moles, or people who are learning how to just do social engineering and deploy ransomware, deploy known good applications that actually start a malicious payload once that user clicks on that spreadsheet that looks like it's an Excel accounting document, but it's not. It then opens up PowerShell, which is a known good application, but can easily be utilized for malicious intent. And then I got a hold of your network, right?
Right.
So it's a different sales approach for each industry, right? A lot of times you're going to start from the IT manager or admin, from small, medium business up into mid-market, and of course the security teams. But the higher you go up, the more you're going to start with the CIO, the CFO, and CTO, and then they're going to kick it back down to, the security team and the infrastructure team that you're going to end up ultimately working, and then coming back to them to present to, right? So it just really depends, because each sector views it differently and also has different types of budgets. So state and local government, a lot of state and local governments are very susceptible to ransomware and other attacks. And they're using legacy antivirus still, like Trend Micro, Symantec.
Is Norton still a thing, or are they gone out of business?
That's Symantec, yeah. So
okay.
Symantec got sold off to Broadcom. Broadcom bought them. But that's legacy-based antivirus, without getting too technical, that can only stop known bad attacks, right? Signatures that have been uploaded and said, hey, someone's been infected here, we need to patch this. Whereas really in today, you're looking for an AI-driven solution that can identify not only zero-day attacks, but really understand what your applications, your users should be doing, and how those should be behaving in your network itself.
Right.
Kind of a good segue into Palantir from their security capabilities. One of the things that they're really known for is their least privilege or role-based access.
Right.
So you may work in sales and I may work in accounting, and there's certain stuff that we shouldn't be seeing it within our internal information. And if Foundry is the operating system that we're building on top of and have integrated our ERP systems, our Salesforce, and other products, that's all going to be very secure, highly encrypted, and segmented based on your roles in the organization.
Yeah.
So a lot of maybe what you've heard is a concept called zero trust, right? Making sure you are who you say you are. Then I'm going to have you have credentials with using your phone for two-factor authentication or some other form to say it really is you signing in on this device. You have access to this application and and verifying that.
Is that ultimately, and I guess we'll go full into it now, ultimately what made you pull the trigger on making the investment? Is it, there's probably a lot of reasons, but is it that cybersecurity background matched with Palantir's main focus to keep people secure? And so for context, I saw today in an old article that apparently they were used to find Bernie Madoff and capture him in 2008. And I didn't even know that. And I came across the article today, and I'm like, this company has been staring us, plain in the face in terms of doing this stuff. So does that stuff influence your decision?
So for me, it was a different perspective, because VMware as a whole as a company is more than just cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Our cybersecurity division is growing rapidly, but it's all encompassing with infrastructure. We created the technology for virtualizing servers, right? Taking a physical server and tricking it with software to then allow you to allocate all of the different resources hardware-wise to application virtualized servers. So you're getting the most out of that server, right? You're getting the maximum utilization, where before virtualization, you could only have one application per server and you're only utilizing 10% of that box,
right,
and having to buy another one, right? So what really intrigued me about Palantir was the idea of being a platform and being the core operating system for any enterprise. And I know they say that's their marketing kind of lingo that's out there on the website, but it really is an operating system.
Yeah.
And so what really drew me to basically doing everything in my power to take it from zero holdings to by far my number one in less than 6 months, is because I understand the power of what Foundry is able to do. Because having an operating system that can take structured data and unstructured data like videos and media and all kinds of data, and take those together and aggregate those and allow you to make that data usable to actually make decisions with very little code to no code, so that someone in a department like accounting or business planning or marketing can actually take that data and then make intuitive real-time decisions based on the business and what data they're looking at. That's when the light bulb was on, was that this is something that can impact an entire corporation holistically, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Skywise example business case with Airbus, it's not just Airbus using the new Skywise platform they built. And they built Skywise, that's built on top of Foundry. Foundry is basically the core operating system, but they've made that usable to where it's impacting the supply chain, the contractors working on the planes. I mean, every piece of the business is touching Skywise, which is essentially Foundry. So I've never seen any software that you can tell me in enterprise sales that every department can utilize and actually get ROI for their department real time, right? So you have different products, right? You have Microsoft, the closest thing you would say is, well, you have Windows. Windows is the core operating system on every Windows device. And then you have Mac and Linux. And you have to create applications, for those operating systems. But wouldn't it be nice if you have a core operating system where no matter what kind of data it is or what kind of application, that you can integrate it in, and then no matter where you're located, whether you're in a submarine, a Humvee, you got satellite data coming, you're getting all of that data updated real time and usable. And so why that's so profound is because when you're selling to these organizations in enterprise, right, whether it's cybersecurity, it could be SaaS software, it could be any of that stuff, it is a much faster sales motion if you can demonstrate ROI and value that is quantifiable and tangible, to then say, this is why we pay millions of dollars for this product, because it saves us more money in the long run, millions of dollars per product, and it makes our company more efficient. And so I've never heard of any kind of platform like that, where, I walk into a normal customer's environment, they have SAP for their ERP systems. They have Salesforce for their CRM. They have, a lot of their databases and stuff is still in Microsoft Access or SQL, or they're using Excel tables, all of this different aggregated data. And then not everyone can share it because they have no way to police it and actually secure it. So when I watched the demo days on Foundry, it was just like, I was sold. Like, I was like, okay, I get this. I don't know why everyone says it's so hard to understand, but unless you actually taking the time to research the website, watch the demos, watch the videos, take notes. And if you don't come from that technical background, I can understand how it's a little harder to digest. But the simple way to just say it in a sentence is, imagine having all of the data that you need to make the best decisions for your business real time, and then be able to be predictive with it, because it's a cause and effect, right? Of, well, if this affects our supply chain, and this is the stuff that's selling out, and we need to address this ahead of time, now all of a sudden we can make decisions much faster than what we would before, saving us millions of dollars. That's a competitive edge that I don't see anyone having. And the fact that they built it for 17 years, 12 was it? We got Foundry now for 5 years. So basically it's like two companies. One company that's been around for a long time. We still don't know most of the things that Gotham is capable of. Totally understandable, considering the nature of their business. But then Foundry's like this fast-paced growing startup that's only been out for 5 years. And here it is, it's growing almost double the rate on their commercial customer base year over year. This was another thing that jumped out at me, was their customers are spending on average $7.5 million a contract. Yeah. I don't know any other company that can say our average customer spends $7.5 million.
It seems like it's pretty valuable. I want to push back on something given what people may be thinking. So in the simplest way to describe it, you're like, okay, if I'm a supply chain company, I put on Foundry, it tells me what stuff I'm short on, and then I make sure to not run out of it so I don't lose money in the future. If it is that simple in a nutshell, even if the software is complex, why isn't it susceptible to either a regular IT department within the company, just like figuring out how to manually code that data so we know what stocks are short on supply, or a really big incumbent easily making a mock-up of it like a Microsoft or Amazon? What would make Palantir stand on its own 2 feet?
So it's the operating system, right? The operating system software itself is like multiple tools and stocks that you've probably seen out there. So for instance, when you look at how, and it's really a 3-pronged approach, right? You have Gotham for government, Foundry for commercial, but Apollo at the edge is really what makes everything so distinct and different in the world when you look at this software together as a platform. So Apollo is the edge computing, an edge platform, edge AI, I would call it, that allows, and I don't truly understand how they're able to do this exactly, but it's able to continuously do updates on a Foundry environment real time, no matter where you're at. So like most situations where if I don't have cloud infrastructure or a cloud connection or internet connection, how can I get updates? Right. And with doing the continuous updates, it's kind of similar to like a company like JFrog doing their I forget, their liquid deployments or whatever they call it, where it's auto life cycling the software and making sure that everything's up to date at all times and without hiccups, right? And testing before to make sure that, hey, we're not going to deploy something that's going to crash something, right? Because this has to be the most reliable platform possible when you take into consideration what they're doing with the government and all those 3-letter agencies. That's another thing that gives me peace at night, knowing here's the platform for 17 years that has protected our country. I feel pretty good about their security protocols, right?
Yeah.
So I think they got security down. But what keeps them from being copied or someone else trying to do what they do is, one, 17 years of thought went into this and building it. I mean, for the first 3 years, they didn't collect a dollar. They just, they knew what they wanted to make. They knew they wanted to make the best solution that was not a consulting service, but an actual software that could help with tracking terrorists and other anti-laundering, money laundering, and other fraudulent behavior. And then Foundry comes on years later on the scene of, hey, we can take a lot of these same principles and we can help commercialize and help businesses understand data better, because ultimately that is what Gotham is allowing them to do in the field, is making those wiser decisions in combat and overall from satellites and all of the stuff that goes into it. So I don't think anyone can actually recreate that with all the patents they have. I don't think anybody's business is focused on this. Like, for instance, when you look at Amazon, Microsoft, Google, right? Those are the 3 companies you're like, well, they got all the money in the world, you know, throw Apple in there too.
Right.
They also have so many different segments of their company that are doing their own thing that sometimes there's very high value in a small company growing big, but staying in its lane and being the best at what it is. That is what Palantir has done. And I think their leadership is, quite frankly, second to none. So I don't see anyone, you know, they have the track record. Who else is going to have a track record with our government like they do? Right. Yeah. So I don't see anyone. I mean, you look at the Ronald Reagan National Defense Forum. CARP was there. I didn't see anybody from Google or Amazon or anything else. You know,
yeah.
So,
and I also think that's because CARP has fully embraced defending Western values. Whereas if Jeff Bezos says that, he gets killed by the press and that hurts the stock price. Like, it's hard for him to defend that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think they have, I mean, with what, and what I'd say the evidence that validates this is you look at the contract extensions and expansion. that have gone on through their customer base. And this kind of goes back to their business model. This is the other thing that I really love about them is their business model is so dependent on their product being phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because the first two stages in their business model, they're losing money significantly, right? To help customers understand the value of the product, to tailor it to their environment, to really kind of crack the code for specific industry verticals. We see all the time on the marketing, they really do cover 40 different industries, right? And so what you're now starting to see is them modulize that, right? For modules of Foundry with like Foundry for crypto, Foundry for carbon net zero carbon emissions and footprint. You got Foundry for software supply chain. So now all of a sudden you've made it more digestible and bite-sized, that you're solving specific problems that you know exist in the world without a doubt globally. And each person, each company in those industries have the same problem, right? If I'm in supply chain, or if I'm trying to make crypto more secure, whatever it may be, there's a lot of there's a big TAM, right? So I think that they're now hitting that stride where it's more digestible to adopt the technology. And you saw that with Foundry for Builders, where they said, okay, we want to make sure that this is a platform. And one of the ways that you can get a lot of customers to jump on the bandwagon quick is if you can make it the core. And really, I think the Skywise example is what started all this, is that they saw the impact and the millions of dollars that they saved, Airbus did, with 15,000 plus employees using it.
Yep.
Why don't we help out startups who don't have the funding, who have the vision, right? They have the talent, they have the visionaries and the founder-led CEOs, but they don't have the banking, they don't have the money, and they may not have all the resources or even know how to put all the software and infrastructure together to get off the ground fast. Instead of piecemealing everything, let's help them out. We'll invest in their stock, and let's lay Foundry as the core operating system for them to build their business. And you've seen that with Wejo. You saw this with Rigetti, with the quantum compute. You saw this with Energy Vault, which is a company I'm heavily interested in to learn more about. And they're picking very important industries that are riding tailwinds into new and emerging trends that we're going to see. We're going to see things happen with crypto. We're going to see things happen with quantum compute. We're going to see things happen with health, life sciences, and more health breakthroughs than ever before, and personalized medicine. So they're not just throwing money. The media kind of made it seem like they were just throwing money willfully at any SPAC because that was the cool thing to do, and that's how they're driving their revenue and their growth. But they're picking very specific companies. Like, let's take, for instance, the DuPont Therapeutics, right? The new
deal they just announced. Yep. A new partnership.
So I haven't dug super into it. I just read the article about it. And what was really interesting was Palantir commented on why they chose them. The head of their biology and life sciences division said, DuPont Therapeutics, they do what's called biology concentrates, molecular concentrates. And I honestly don't know what that is because I haven't taken time to fully.
It's basically taking molecules and diluting them and trying to do drug discovery within the liquid of the molecules.
Okay. Yeah. So totally different way than what, say, Schrodinger would do with physics and software, or Abcelera would do with antibodies and software and AI. So they said, and they commented, that we really feel like they're doing something unique in the health life sciences field, and we think they're onto something, and we want to help them grow their business, and we want them to succeed. And one thing we can say that we've learned from history in the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, of watching these SaaS-based companies really blow up and do well so quickly, the companies that are customer obsessed and customer focused and have revenue models that are consumption based, they do very well.
Right.
right?
Especially in the beginning when they're not focused on getting profitable, but just getting a ton of market share and getting people so integrated with their software to the point where they can't leave the software at that point.
Correct. And going back to that business model, so we go through acquire, expand, and scale. Acquire, they basically don't make any money, but they're getting to basically do a free POC, right? They're getting their forward deployed engineer in there. They're doing that proof of concept. They're getting it deployed quickly and start figuring out solving problems for the customer. Then they go into the expand stage where they start really tailoring it to more critical problems in the business, other departments, expanding out to other segments. And then after the proof in the pudding has happened over these 5 or 6 months, then all of a sudden it goes to the scale and it goes company wide. And that's when they make all their money back, and their gross margins are 78%.
Yeah, it's about 80%. Yeah.
So that's pretty darn good when you consider all the money they're losing on the front end of that sales motion. And they're speeding the sales motion up, as we've seen with just the product is it's so much better now with deployment with Apollo, that they're getting through those first 2 stages. Some companies are even skipping the second stage and say, let's just sign the contract. Like, let's go.
Right. It's almost like they're consulting in the very beginning with getting them to realize how the product could help the company and giving them a couple months to really integrate it. And then it's become an actual sale. So like they're doing the hard work of getting you to realize how much money you're going to save. And then once you realize that, then you just buy the product because you're going to save money.
Well, and why that business model is so unique is I've really never seen it at this scale, to where, I mean, think if their product was horrible or had any kind of failures, they would never get to stage 3.
Yep.
And they would keep losing money and losing customers, right?
Yep.
But what we've seen is once they get to stage 3, all of a sudden the big contracts get signed and it's a multi-year contract. And what people forget is that, and I did a video on this on my YouTube channel, was as the years go by, the contribution margin goes higher and higher and higher.
Can you explain what that is, contribution margin?
Yeah. So I wish I had the definition in front of me, but it's basically I'm going to try to rattle it off memory. It's the,
I'm going to look it up right now as well. It is computed as the selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit.
Yes. So basically the selling price versus the cost of goods that it is to make that, right?
Right.
So it's the profit margin, essentially, in a way, of just that product, right? Of that service.
Right.
And so once you've done the hard work of getting them set up, you put people out there, you've consulted, you've gotten them using other, that's all money out of your pocket that you're not getting. But once you go to scale phase and you're in these multi-year contracts, you've done all the hard work. Now what they're going to do is they're going to find other ways to use this product and come back and say, can we use this for, the factories? Can we use this for our laboratory? Like I think we have other use cases here. And what you see is the expansion of the company's use cases keep growing. And so by definition, like you said, it's going to be way too hard to rip out because it's now literally the operating system of your business.
Right.
But the other piece is that it's expanding in ROI and value. Why would you leave? Right? Why you've now got a customer who's going to be reoccurring revenue. And that's the definition of software as a service, is that reoccurring, guaranteed, predictable revenue. The only way you do that is being customer obsessed and having a product that is so good, you're not going to switch. And that's what I think Palantir is.
It's almost like CRM and AWS in the early days, because CRM was like a whole new way for you to manage leads and prospect leads and then get to the close as a software for the company. And once you have a Salesforce, every company has a Salesforce that can use CRM. AWS in 2006 was like, all right, we're going to get rid of all these like physical servers and all your data is going to go to the cloud. And once your data is in the cloud, it's so much more efficient than being on physical servers. So you're never going to leave AWS. So if this cliche that we keep hearing is true, that data is the new oil, and every big company, organization, even small company, is going to have immense amounts of data to analyze. If Palantir becomes the CRM AWS of that data over the next 2 decades, it seems like they would be in every potential company in the world, like CRM and AWS are.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're looking at it from the right lens, and I think that people are looking at this too short term,
Yeah.
right? Like Amazon didn't become a rock star stock overnight,
Yep.
right? It took 20 plus years to really see the true power of compounding.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that we're going to see, and same thing with Salesforce, and with what this company is doing. They're doing it methodically, they're doing it strategically, and they know the end game. They're patient. I love what Alex said. Alex said, hey, if you want short-term stock, ours is probably not for you, and don't invest in us. Like, go put your money elsewhere, right? Like, you're going to have to endure in some volatility, but it's going to be worth it in the end, right? We have a big vision, and so I love investing in founder-led companies, people who have visions and are committed. And you can see very similar things with him and Elon in the fact that they're only paid in stock, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That tells you the founder believes that, hey, if the ship goes down, then I should go down with it.
Right.
And so their level of commitment is very high.
Now, you and I think you would agree, are not the smartest people in the world.
No,
So
definitely not.
some of the more smarter people we assume are in fancy high-rise apartments in New York, working at hedge funds and investment banks that control most of the institutional capital that's ultimately going to move this type of stock. Why don't those people, obviously, given the intense amount of research they've done, see that long-term vision? And why isn't there a ton of money being flowing into the stock while it's cheap?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, most of those guys don't operate on long-term investments. They operate in a yearly cycle. What we're seeing right now, where people are selling off stuff at the end of the year and getting into stuff that was successful just to say, hey, we were in the right stocks at the right time, and it's all a game, right? And then we're going to see it all switch up in January. They have different objectives than what retail investors have, right? For long-term investors. So I think that they can control when they want to get in, when they want to. There is more institutional investing going on in Palantir now. If you look at it, I think it's in the high 30s.
Yep, around 36%. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like low 20s just 2 quarters ago, right? So people are starting to see this story unfold. If we were to look at Palantir 12 months ago from now, I think it's fair to say we can make an assumption that their marketing's better. They've hired more salespeople. They understand there's a game to be played in corporate where you can't just all be engineers, right? You have to have a sales group. And I think Karp and Thiel and Cohen and all of those guys realize that. They're at that inflection point. And really the only negative that someone can say on the stock is that the stock-based compensation dilutes the shareholders or whatever they.
That's what I was going to ask. What is your opinion on that?
But I'm fine with it because I'm in it for 20 plus years. I don't think they're going to have SBC like this for 20 years.
Yeah.
But do I think they need it to compete against Google, Microsoft, and everyone else who can pay millions of dollars for people, the best of the best? Yeah, they do. And I want their employees to have the same skin in the game that Karp does.
Right.
So if that means that we're not profitable for, or they're not profitable for 3 years, then they're not profitable. But what I'm looking for is the indicators. Is the business growing? Is the business getting more operationally efficient? And that's why I look at contribution margin, because if you look, their contribution margin has gotten better every single quarter.
Right.
And if you look at their commercial growth, their revenue is getting better. And so when you start seeing these things, as well as commercial customer growth, those are the indicators that they're getting to market faster. Customers aren't leaving and they're buying more as they go through the scale phase. And the company is being very methodical on who they invest in from a SPAC perspective. Most of their SPACs have done okay. And if you look at their customer base from a commercial standpoint, a lot of those customers have had great earnings releases lately.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look for. I'm more qualitative than quantitative. I believe if, another thing that where I do go quantitative is debt. they have zero debt, right?
Yeah.
Zero debt, 78% gross margins, and you're growing at 49% year over year. Check, check, check.
Yeah.
So everyone's hangups either on, well, I'm impatient. The stock is now it's 18, now it's 19, it just can't crack 20. I'm paying attention to, okay, they just got a whole bunch of new patents approved this past couple days that they had for networking segmentation. They are making more partnerships. Their SPAC companies are getting approved. Now they're going public. So we'll see some residual from that. Yep. So I just want to keep seeing progress. And if they continue to keep putting information out there and showing progress and getting the word out, the product will stand on itself. It's just a matter of time. And so it's not my only stock. I have like 50 plus stocks, but it is 12% of my portfolio. But I think it checks a lot of boxes. When I went through my investing scorecard, I got the second highest score at like 86. And I think NVIDIA was 87. So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. Last couple questions I have. I talked to Tom about what it would take for them to become $1 trillion company, and he says they have to give some type of consumer product. Do you see like a world in which they actually go consumer? And do you think they're kind of playing with these SPACs to kind of test like a foundry for builders? What does that look like for consumer? And they're dabbling in the water there.
Yeah. So me and Tom had a fun conversation about this, and I go back and forth. He kind of checkmated me just on the fact that when we were talking about this exact topic, he pulled up the top 100 biggest companies by market cap. Yep. And I think almost all of them, or at least the top like 50, had some kind of consumer reach and product. So I didn't have much to stand on after that point. So Tom, if you're watching this, for now, you're right. You are right. And I do think that I think they'll have a consumer product. I think they will get something. I keep saying I'd like them to fix my email problem, make email more efficient in communication.
Right.
But I think that they're going to make more partnerships with more companies and make their products better. And I think we'll eventually see that trickle down to the commercials, the actual consumer side, right? And it's just not the top priority right now.
Yeah, I agree.
They have to really crush that Fortune 500 and get that. Then, start, they're already starting to build products, platforms, and solutions through other companies. So you're basically seeing founder as a byproduct of other companies and what their product is built, right? You look at Wejo. I would anticipate Wejo to have something very similar to what Airbus has done with Skywise. And that's their, core product, right?
Right.
So I do think they will do that. I still am not 100% sure that they have to have a consumer product to be $1 trillion market cap, just because their SPAC investments and how they're essentially being the bottom foundation of whatever product you want to put on there and send it out as a company can be done. And there's limitless to that, right?
Right.
I just
like if AWS was its own company, I think we could pretty much agree it's close to $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're the natural operating system, the ontology, as they call it, for every single company, like that seems like it can get there close.
Yeah. So, and if they don't, they don't. Like, I mean, like, I'm not trying to think of the word here. I won't be disappointed if they end up being a $500 billion company and that's where they max out. Right. Yeah. I got in at an early stage. I think this company has a long way to go. Definitely think there'll be more volatility. My only bear case is if the leadership team leaves. I just think there's a lot of untapped stuff. So as long as they keep hiring the right people, keeping the people there, and if that means by SBC, so be it. They have something special that I mean, if you watch their company culture videos and everything else, like they're what companies want to be when they get too big and they can't be that anymore. So if they keep that company culture and keep everything in check, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion.
Okay, I think that is the best way to end it. Thank you so much, Dom, for being on the second official episode. I'm sure people are going to get a lot of good insights, especially from someone who's in cybersecurity and sales and kind of understands the industry at a deeper level. And yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your insights.
No problem. And don't forget, also go subscribe to Dominating Your Investments.
Yes, that's going to be the first link. If you like this channel and my channel, please check the description, subscribe to Dom, check him out. Gives an awesome analysis. I love his channel. I watch his videos. So hope you guys check it out as well. And we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.